Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Chattaro me bhikkave ahara bhutanang va sattanang titiya. Sambhavesinang va anuggahaya katame chattaro. Kabalinkaro aharo olariko va sukhumo va passo dutiyo mano sancetana tatiya viññānaṁ catutthaṁ ti. Dear members of the Sangha, dear Dhamma friends, actually as Professor mentioned, we hope to discuss particularly on the fourth type of nutriment. But first of all, let me give a little summary of what Buddha mentioned in this Ahara Sutta. Basically, Buddha mentioned that Chattaro me bhikkave ahara bhutanang va sattanang titiya. So, for the maintenance of already arisen beings, it is necessary to have various food, various nutriments. And not only that, sambhavesinang va anuggahaya. So, for the assistance of those about to come to be. So there are certain beings who are now getting birth, maybe in the womb, and for them also it is necessary to have certain amount of nutriment. So that is also discussed here. So those Buddha mentioned is not just the edible food, but there are 4 different kinds of food altogether. So the first one is quite easy to understand. That is the edible food. It could be little gross or it could be subtle. But anyway, it is the edible food. One, kabalinkara ahara. Second one is called the passa ahara, where the contact as a nutriment. Third one is mano sancetana ahara, the nutriment, mental volition as a nutriment. And then the last one is the consciousness as a nutriment. Now actually, when we were discussing typical edible food, that is something that we all can understand, but the other 3 is quite difficult to understand. It is only maybe available in the Buddha's teaching, and if one has thorough understanding on these different kinds of food, different nutriments Buddha mentioned, and different levels of understanding, different levels of attainments are quite possible. So having deep understanding of these different topics, these subjects, maybe practically, is quite useful, and therefore that's why we are trying to get some theoretical understanding about them. And again, without limiting to theoretical understanding, we should try our best to practically understand them as well. Now, as I mentioned, the first one is edible food, easy to understand. But if we consider the contact as a nutriment, we all know that through our eyes we are looking at various sights, through ears we can listen various sounds, through nose we can smell various odors, through the tongue we can taste various flavors, through the body we can recognize various sensations, maybe various tangibles, and again through the mind we also can recognize various mental objects. So these are the 6 sense bases through which we are communicating with the outside world, and we prefer to have that. Time to time I want to look at a TV, I want to look at maybe a movie. So likewise we eager to look at through our eyes. So through ears we want to listen to music. Through our nose we want to smell some good fragrances. Through the nose, through the tongue we want to enjoy some delicious food. Maybe through the body we want to have some soft sensations, tangibles. So that is also there. If none of them are working, then we want to think maybe something good or whatever that mind prefers to think. So likewise, through these senses we want to get occupied every time. So therefore we can consider it is some sort of absorbing or partaking different kinds of food, maybe sounds, maybe sights, maybe smells, tastes, tangibles, and again various thoughts, various mental objects. And on the other hand, if you consider mano sanchetana ahara, that is the mental volition, we always motivated to do something. I want to do something, I want to think about it, I want to tell it. So likewise, we are always geared to do something. We are motivated to do something. And some others also will motivate us to do something. Suppose that you are keeping idle for some time, then others may come and motivate you, why don't you do something? So likewise, these volitional activities can happen because of our own initiative, or those can happen because of someone's influence, persuasion. But anyway, we have to pay for that, because mental volition contributes or cause to generate karma. So if we do some wholesome activities, then we can reap some favorable results. On the other hand, if we engage with some unwholesome activities, then we have to go through some unfavorable results. So mental volition therefore is sometimes working not in favor, but rather doing some harm to us, because most of the time our volition is not purely our own, but it depends on so many other conditions, so many other influences. Even though, say, I am telling, okay, this is my decision, this is my selection, so this is what I do, this is what I am talking, this is what I thought. So all these volitional activities has a fair influence coming from various outside components, outside reasons, causes. As a result of that, ultimately we are the ones going to suffer. So the last one is what today we hope to talk in detail. So that is even subtle, and it is called Vijnanahara, the consciousness as a nutriment. Now, why Buddha talks nutriment consciousness? Now, before getting to that subject, let me take you to a different understanding, different way of looking at our mind. So we only know about a mind which is thinking. Suppose you are not much familiar with meditation, particularly the Vipassana meditation. Say we then aware of a mind which is constantly thinking and constantly occupied. When we are thinking, certainly there are various mental images also appear in the mind, and more constructions also happening in the mind. So fair amount of time our mind is occupied. So this thinking probably we may stop only during the sleeping time. So even there, if we are dreaming, there may be a certain amount of mental activity going on. So we can't stay even a minute without thinking, and we prefer thinking, we prefer conceptual proliferation. And even when a thought comes to the mind, we are not simply allowing it to pass by, rather we add our own stuff to it, we decorate it, we multiply it, we add to it, we delete to it. So likewise we do a lot of constructions, modifications, fabrications, so that our mind is constantly occupied. Now, in order to do this, there is a kind of an internal world that we are preparing. So I have my own perceptions, I have my own kind of extractions coming from various things that I have seen, what I have heard, what I have smelled, what I have tasted, what I have sensed. So a lot of pre-data or previous data is available in my data bank. Time to time I am enjoying them, or maybe I can even enjoy something projected towards the future. So therefore our thinking constantly going from this end to the other end, from past to the future, and very rarely we think in the present moment as well. We try to be in the present moment as well. Anyway, this thinking machine never stops. We constantly pump fuel to that. Now, when we are thinking, when our mind is occupied, if you consider carefully, so mind has no space. Suppose your mind is something like a playground. So that playground is constantly occupied with some kind of players. They may be say the same players, different players coming from different villages, different countries. So constantly occupied by different players. And we consider that having those players is a kind of a blessing. So constantly our mind always latch with certain forms. So what I have seen, what I have heard, what I have sensed through the nose, tongue and body, and what I have cognized through the mind. So I have a fair amount of such data already available. Similarly, there are various feelings. So if those form related data are not enough, so I can enjoy various feelings. Maybe I am enjoying some pleasurable feelings, maybe painful feelings I have to go through, maybe neutral feelings are also there. So I may be sort of established on those feelings. And maybe we have different perceptions. Okay, he is like this, my sister is like this, my brother is like this, my husband is like this, my wife is like this. So about many people, we have different perceptions. And in order to recognize people or in order to recognize various objects, we have a lot of data, a lot of say remarks, a lot of signs, marks through which we do this recognition. And those also fairly stored in our mind, and time to time we start consuming them. So our mind basically established on all those data. So either it may establish on all those forms data. So that means sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles. So those are the more gross kind of data. So our mind can establish there as well. On the other hand, it can either establish on feelings, pleasurable feelings, neutral feelings, painful feelings. That is another subject. Again, it can establish on various perceptions, various marks. So when you are thinking, so there are various perceptions already promoted in your mind, and you are imagining, various mental images are appearing in your mind. Say you are thinking about your friend, then all the past memories, good events that you have spent with him or her, so those are now coming or appearing in your mind. So those are very much like mental images. So constantly occupied. So your mind can establish on those perceptions as well, mental images as well. Or on the other hand, you are fully engaged with constructions. So you are thinking maybe about the past, you are thinking what has happened, you are imagining about the future, designing, planning about the future. So you are fairly occupied with that kind of mental constructions, mental formations as well. So therefore in Upaya Sutta, available in Kanda Samyutta, in Samyutta Nikaya, connected discourses of the Buddha, therefore Buddha make a very interesting statement, that is Rupa upayangva bhikkhave viññānaṁ tiṭṭhamaṇaṁ tiṭṭheya Rupa rammanam rupa patiṭṭhaṁ. Monks, this consciousness either engage or stand upon various forms. And not only standing upon, it may have some sort of a delight because of this kind of a firm establishment. And further it starts thriving there. By using various forms, it starts thriving there, growing there, so that it is fairly established, firmly established. And further Buddha mentioned Vedana upayangva bhikkhave viññānaṁ tiṭṭhamaṇaṁ tiṭṭheya. Sometimes it may establish on various different kinds of feelings. Suppose you are going through some pleasurable feeling, so you are fully engaged with it. You are in that world. So these feelings have come to the very front. So they are the predominant ones. So your consciousness is established there. And there it is finding its footing. It is growing there now. On the other hand, Buddha mentioned Sanya upayangva bhikkhave viññānaṁ tiṭṭhamaṇaṁ tiṭṭheya. So different kinds of perceptions are there, mental images are there, various marks are there, signs are there. So you get interested there, and now consciousness is established there. It is now growing there. It has find lot of fertilizer to establish. Then Sankharupayang va Bhikkhave Vinyanam Tittamanam Titteyu. So different kinds of mental formations are also there. When, as I mentioned, when a simple thought comes to your mind, we don't simply allow it to pass by. We do a lot of constructions, lot of additions, multiplications. So we are fully occupied with that kind of an activity. So your consciousness is established there. And it finds its footing there. It finds its kind of a nutriment there. Now you can see the consciousness have 4 places to establish. Either on forms, either on feelings, either on various perceptions, signs, marks, or either on mental formations. Now what happens when consciousness established like that? It causes rebirth. Suppose at the death moment, if your mind consciousness established on any of these, so it causes regeneration or producing a new life. And on the other hand, Buddha further mentioned, so these are the 4 bases, 4 kind of establishments. Other than these 4 types, there is nothing else. Now, when Buddha mentioned these kind of consciousness is established, on another way Buddha explained it, that it is always established on name and form, nama rupa. Now this is a little tricky subject that we are dealing with. We typically say, okay, I am looking at a particular person, on top of that my mind is established. I am hearing particular sound, there my mind is established. I am going through some smells, tastes, so there my mind is established, consciousness is established. But on the other hand, if you little come closer or go little deeper, come to the source, sometimes we can say, when we are looking at a particular person, it is not really the person that we see. Actually what we see is a certain image appearing in our eye. Now, this is a little scientific. Say when you are looking at a tree, so there's an image being produced because of light and various light rays coming through that particular tree, and then it prepares a kind of a inverted image in your eye, and then the brain does all these constructions, changes, preparations. So in actual terms, that is what we are actually knowing, actually experiencing. But we forget it and we immediately attribute it to an external person. Similarly, when there's a sound happen, there's a little fraction of that, an image of that sound is what appearing on our eardrum. So likewise, there is another level working on this subject. So there's a significant contribution coming from our brain, contribution coming from our mind into this all different kinds of experiences. Now rather than looking at outside, how if we look at our own mind? So that is where Buddha mentioned, so this consciousness is dependent upon name and form. So now you are not looking at really the outside object or outside forms, outside smells, tastes, etc. Rather, they produce kind of an image in our mind. So that is where the name and form, nama rupa, comes to be. So gross forms may be available outside, but from there we extract certain kind of an image. So that image is what appearing in our mind, helping it has to produce as a form part, rupa part. And on top of that we have a certain amount of feeling, certain amount of sign attributed. Then probably we can have a very primary level of chetana, volition. And again, and there's a contact of course happen, passa available. And you are now turning your attention towards that. So when defining this nama rupa, therefore rupa part, the form part, have that kind of an image extracted from that gross form available outside. Say 4 elements available outside. When we consider name part, it has Vedana, Sanya, Chetana, Passa, Manasikara, feelings, perceptions, volition, contact, and the adverting of mind as their ingredients. So you can see little subtle aspects are there. So we are coming to the very root of our mind. So always name and form therefore has a conditioning, has a footing prepared to establish the consciousness. Let me explain you this through a little example. So actually this example is very beautifully explained by Most Venerable Katukurunde Jnanananda Mahathero. So let us think about a cinema. Assume that you are going to see a film, a cinema, and maybe it's daytime. So since it is daytime, all the doors are closed, all the windows are closed. And if it is the perfect situation, then you can't see anybody. Suppose that you are sitting on a chair, but you can't see anything because it is pitch dark. Now suppose from the projector that there is a light beam projected onto the screen. Now there is a kind of an incident being portrayed on the screen. Now what happens is that we immediately get attracted to that particular scene, and there may be kind of a beautiful scene going on. They are loving, kissing, enjoying, singing, so many things are happening. So we being fully distracted there, and we are enjoying that. And while we are enjoying that, assume that there's another scene. Now we can connect the previous scene with the next scene that we do within ourselves, and assume that that particular scene also now deleted. Now a new scene appear on the screen. So we can connect it. So internally, all these spectators, they can do these connections. So we are eagerly waiting to see the next event, next incident. Okay, the next incident happened. So we are eagerly waiting to see the next incident. So likewise, so we have this always inclined mind, kind of an internal inclination towards next incident. So again and again, so the different projections, different incidents, events are projected onto the screen. Now we do the internal constructions. We are enjoying a particular film. So we are now in a particular world. So if it is a love affair being portrayed on the screen, okay, we are in a loving world. So if it is a fight really being portrayed on the screen, okay, we are in a little excited world. Now suppose all of a sudden those doors and windows are open. Now what happened? So immediately huge amount of this sun rays coming and striking on the screen. As a result of that, that previous very colorful images are being faded away. Now previously we were fully indulging with those different images, but right now because of this very powerful sun rays, now the whole screen become white, and all those different multiple color images are being deleted, faded away. Now all of a sudden we understand, okay, we were seeing a film. It is a fabrication. It is a fiction. I am on a cinema hall. I am on a chair. Now you come to the reality. Now you come to your senses. Now you feel a little dispassionate because you were in an imaginary world prepared by all those different events projected onto the screen, and you consider at that time those are real and you are enjoying that. But now all of a sudden you are on your seat. There are other spectators as well, and there's a screen as well. Now if you combine this whole scenario to our mind, so typically our mind is occupied with a kind of different series of events, and we are enjoying them, or we are trapped in them, and we consider them as utterly important, and we give them life, and now we are fully engaged with it, and we are maybe crying, maybe quite happy, worrying, regretting, or being excited, because different events are being shown in our screen. But later, suppose you are able to calm down everything, then you look at them objectively. They are not really events, rather they are thoughts, they are mental images, they are different feelings. So likewise, now you are looking at in a different angle. So as you are doing that, slowly, so this whole thing, complicated thing, start to become dilute, and now you feel dispassionate, and thoughts are now coming one after the other. You can recognize each one after the other. So as a result of that, you feel more dispassionate. Now your mind feels more spacious. And probably there may be a situation, your mind completely become blank, there is no thoughts even. Now all of a sudden your sort of orientation change. So you were in a kind of a dream, different events, projected by different thoughts, constructed by different thoughts, constructed by different feelings, constructed by different perceptions. But all those incidents are now slowly faded away, and now you have a different kind of a perspective, different kind of an orientation. Now you are fully aware, but with a empty mind. You have kind of a dispassion towards all those events. Even a new event happens, you have kind of a dispassion because you have gone through it. So rather than being trapped in it, now you know they have the nature to come and go. You don't need to really claim it as mine. Now in that simile, in the cinema simile, say the availability of screen is only possible, or we can understand, when kind of a image being projected to that. But in order for the image to get projected, you need to have a screen. So therefore we can say this screen and the image projected on top of it have an interrelationship. They are internally interdependent. Similarly, in our mind also, when we know, okay, there is an event, there is an incident, so that is where the name and form is available in our mind, and then only we know, okay, I am living, I am seeing, I am thinking, I am imagining, I am planning. So you all of a sudden feel like I am living. So always, so name and form is necessary for the consciousness to establish. So it's a kind of a interrelationship is there. Name and form and vijnana, nama rupa and vijnana, name and form and consciousness, therefore tightly interwoven, tightly interdependent. And Venerable Sariputta say they are like kind of a say two sheets connected together. So it is explained in the another sutta, which is called Nalakalapa Sutta. So they are like two sheaves of reeds might stand leaning onto another, because if you take one, the other one falls. If you take this, the other one also falls. So they are quite interdependent. So similarly, Venerable Sariputta mentioned Vijnana Pacca Nama Rupan, Nama Rupacca Vijnana. So consciousness is dependent on the name and form dependent on the consciousness. So it has a kind of an interrelationship. But the gravity of this problem is that when they are operating like that, when your mind has kind of a mental image as well as perceptions, little chetana, volition, and your mind is turned towards a particular direction, now these mental activities are available, consciousness are established, name and form and consciousness are in operation. Now it doesn't stop there. It conditions these six sense bases. Six sense bases condition contact conditions different feelings, feeling conditions craving conditions say grasping. So likewise the complete, say the Paticcasamuppada dependent origination coming to the being. Ultimately a huge suffering going to arise. Now, dangerous part is that we want to think, we want to occupy our mind. So we are very much like addicted to occupy our mind. You can't simply keep your mind empty. Probably you feel boring. You want to do something, or you want to think something. You want to have something available in your mind. So all of a sudden that say, if your mind become blank, then you might feel afraid, feel frightened. Now suppose while you are enjoying that movie, in that cinema simile, say you are fully involved, fully engaged in an exciting scene. Suppose you are fully there. While you are there, immediately if the doors and windows are open, you feel completely lost. You are in a completely different world. Now all of a sudden you come to the reality, okay, now I am on a chair. Something like that. So understanding this interdependency between Vijnana and Namarupa is therefore quite challenging. It requires fair amount of training. And on the other hand, we are constantly have that desire to occupy the mind or occupy the consciousness. So that helps again and again this consciousness getting trapped at different levels of name and form. But we consider it as necessary. It is required because of our ignorance, because of our avijja. Now, in order for us to give some understanding about this operation, Buddha gave a very interesting simile in the Putta Mansa Sutta. So he say there is a kind of a bandit, kind of a thief. Now he being caught by soldiers, and now that particular criminal is being taken to the king, and these soldiers are now asking, great king, now this is a bandit, this is a criminal, we found him and he has done all these criminal activities, please give him whatever the punishment you want. Then the king order his soldiers, okay, strike him with 100 spears during the morning. Now the people agreed and they want to implement king's order. They take that criminal towards a particular place. They strike him with 100 spears. Now then again during the afternoon they come and report to the king. And king is asking, what is going on? Is that fellow still alive? Then the other soldiers, they report, yes, still that guy is still living. Then king order, okay, strike him another 100 spears. So they implement that plan as well. They strike another 100 spears. So in the evening they come back to report to the king. Now the king is inquiring, is that fellow still living? Yes, Bhante, still he is living. Yes, Majesty, he is still living. Then strike him another spears, 100 spears. Then they implement that order as well. They strike another 100 spears. Now Buddha asked from the monks, what do you think, monks? Are these 300 spear strokes going to hurt this thief? Then the monks, of course, answer, why not, Bhante? It is not 300 spear strokes. Even a single spear struck is quite painful. It can make him even really fatal, really painful. Then how about 300 spear strokes? Then Buddha mentioned, this is the way you have to look at the nutriment consciousness. So why Buddha is giving this kind of a simile? Now if I ask from you, in the morning, how many thoughts that you have enjoyed? how many thoughts came to your mind? How many mental images came to your mind? In the afternoon, how many mental images, how many perceptions, how many thoughts came to your mind? Is it 100? Is it 200? So in the evening, if I ask you the question, how many mental objects, how many mental images, how many volitions, or how many different mental images come into your mind? Is it 100, 200? So you can see from the very moment that we get up, we start thinking, we start occupying our mind, and we consider it's like an opportunity, but there is no break for our mind. So there is no rest. We never heard about a kind of a rest to our mind. Now through the practice, therefore Buddha help us to come to a different side, or kind of a paradigm shift happen because of the practice. Now Buddha mentioned in this Upaya Sutta, as I already mentioned, either consciousness to establish, you need different kinds of forms. For it to establish, it needs different feelings, or it requires different perceptions, or it requires kind of mental activities, mental formations. Now how about calming down them? How about reducing them? Say you are keeping your eyes closed, you are going to a very silent place, you are not tasting, you are not having any food, your body keeping silent, still, and slowly you are trying to calm down thinking, inner chatter, rumination. So that also you are now calming down. So slowly what we are trying to do is to reduce giving food to their consciousness. That name and form part we are now reducing. We are not giving enough different forms, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, so we are not giving. Similarly, we are not sort of purposely generating any feelings. Maybe we are not trying to get various mental images. Even if they come, we let them go. And we are trying to minimize thinking as well, mental constructions as well. So in Vipassana meditation, so this is where we are trying to approach slowly, methodically. We are trying to reduce name and form which is provided towards the consciousness. By the way, why are we having different kinds of feelings, perceptions, forms, mental formations to the consciousness? Because of our greed, because of the craving. On the other hand, we can say, when we are reducing craving, consciousness may not have much kind of food, name and form. So ultimately it is possible to have a mind which is not established, have a consciousness which is not established. So which is very, very beautifully mentioned in say this Upaya Sutta. Let me refer Buddha's words. Rupa dhatuya che bhikkave bhikkhuno rago pahino hoti. That means suppose that you are doing kaya anupassana. So while you are doing kaya anupassana, you are trying to understand the reality of different elements. Earth element, fire element, water element, air element. So these are the forms, and you are trying to understand their true nature. As a result of that, whatever the passion you had, whatever the lust you had towards different forms, so that covers all the sights, sounds, smells, tastes and tangibles. So whatever the desire, whatever the craving you had towards them is now slowly fading away through kaya anupassana. Suppose you are doing vedana anupassana. So you are trying to focus your attention to different feelings. So as a result of that, you understand their true nature, how impermanent they are, how inconstant they are, how vulnerable they are, how non-governable they are. So slowly you are understanding their true reality, true nature. As a result of that, now you don't bother even. If it is a pleasurable feeling, you don't care. If it's a painful feeling, you are not much bothered. Even if it's a, say, neutral feeling, you can simply be with it. So likewise, now you slowly become dispassionate towards different feelings. Say, different perceptions. Say, when different images, mental images appear in your mind. So rather than you are trying to give any prominence to them, any value to them, you now look at them objectively. You step back and look at them objectively. Okay, you understand, they are merely perceptions. They are merely mental images. I don't have to promote them. I don't have to give life to them. I don't need to attribute a person to that. This is mental image. So you have that proper understanding, that wisdom. Rather than constructing on top of that mental image, you recognize it as a mental image. Objectively, you are able to look at it. As a result of that, now you have a fair amount of dispassion towards those mental images as well, perceptions as well. Now what happened? So they also start fading away in the mind. Now you feel little spacious. Previously the mind is fully occupied with many different mental images, one after the other. But now because of your practice, now less mental images. And even it comes, you are fully aware. You are not adding any value to it. You are not promoting it. You are not getting deluded by that. And now slowly it fades away. Now you feel more comfortable, more relaxed. Your mind starts resting. Your mind feels peaceful, less agitation. So these are the kind of healthy benefits that you are feeling, experiencing. Further, you are minimizing the volitional activities as well. So through mindfulness practice, through samatha practice, through vipassana practice, so slowly you are minimizing volitional activities as well. You are not going to construct. Say a particular thought come to the mind, you stop adding to that. You stop coloring that. You stop fabricating that. Rather you recognize it as a thought. This is a lustful thought. This is a thought of ill will. This is a jealousy. Okay, this is a worry. This is a doubt. So you give the proper name. You know exactly what it is. So rather than you being trapped in it or being deluded by that, so you know it properly, wisely. As a result of that, now they also fade away. They minimize. So what is the result? Rupa dhatu yache bhikkhave rago pahino hoti. So because of the kayanupassana practice, you can minimize the greed or the lust towards many different forms. Through Vedananupassana, you can minimize lust, greed, attachment towards various feelings. Through Chittanupassana, Dhammanupassana, you can minimize whatever the attachment you have towards various perceptions, mental formations. As a result, that what going to happen? That the link between name and form and consciousness. Probably you can remember that I was mentioning there's a strong relationship, interrelationship between name and form and consciousness. Now that link going to break because of this practice. Then Buddha mentioned ragassa pahana vocchijata rammanam patittha viññānasa nohoti. Because of this practice, the passion, greed or lust reduced. Instead now the dispassion arise. As a result of that link going to break, then patittha viññānasa nohoti. So the establishment of consciousness not going to happen. So Vedananupassana also Buddha mentioned like that. Say now the possibility of establishing consciousness on feelings, now you are trying to minimize. Ultimately suppose that link is broken. When you are trying to establish on, when the consciousness is trying to establish on different mental images, perceptions, that is also broken. When various mental constructions are there, mental, say, thoughts are there, There also mind can establish, that also being stopped, and therefore that link is also broken. Now what's going to happen? Buddha mentioned, now consciousness is unestablished. Tang appatittitang vijnana. Now we are coming to a completely different domain. So far, consciousness is constantly entangled, established with name and form. But now, at least for a temporary time, it is not established. Tang appatittitang vijnana. Avirulham. Now the possibility of drawing the consciousness is not available. Anabhisankaccha vimuttam. So those constructions, conceptual proliferations, your own additions, that is also stopped. As a result of that, mind get released. Consciousness get released. So far it was entangled with name and form, but now it get released. An interesting point, vimuttatta titang. As a result of this release, now consciousness stands still. Consciousness remains still. Our mind was constantly jumping from this to that because of inner agitation, inner craving, but now temporarily that being completely stopped. So as a result of that, consciousness comes to a kind of a standstill. Titatta santusitang. And Buddha mentioned, now probably if you have the proper perspective, if you are well understood, you know the theory, you know exactly what is going to happen, you are well prepared, when it happens, you may feel contented. Titatta santusitam. Santusitattana paritasati. As a result of that, when mind released, when consciousness unestablished, when consciousness released, you are not getting agitated, you are not fearful. What is the result? Aparitassam pacchattang eva parinibbhayati. If you are able to maintain this, again and again realize this, again and again establish, or rather try to make the mind unestablished, consciousness make unestablished, you are not getting deluded by various name and forms, you allow it to pass away, slowly you can abandon all the defilements, ultimately one can attain even arhatship. Therefore Buddha mentioned, if one understands the nutriment consciousness, he may understand the name and form, nama rupa. And name and form have that interrelationship between consciousness. So all these intricacies you are going to understand. It is so deep, so subtle. So if one have that understanding, we can become an arhat. So you can see it's a very powerful teaching, difficult to understand, and we have to have a lot of practice to recognize this whole operation. And if you are able to do that, so that is the understanding of the nutriments. If we have that proper understanding, slowly all the different kinds of raga anusaya, that means underlying tendency to greed, start fading away. Patigahanusayam pativinodetta, all different ill will, those tendencies start fading away. Asmiti ditti mananusayam samuhanitta, different personality views, I am, the conceit, all starts fading away. Avijjam pahaya vijjam uppadetta, so you abandon ignorance, instead you now have wisdom. Ditteva dhamme dukkhasanta karohoti, within this life you are capable of ending of suffering. So you can see it's so deep teaching, difficult to understand of course, but slowly if you are trying to understand these different nutriments, maybe the edible food, contact, manosanchetana, that is the mental volition, and today we discuss the consciousness nutriment. Then we are in a fairly rich area of vipassana. So if we can look at how these nutriments are working within our mind, how different types of craving are conditioning these different nutriments, how we unknowingly even partake these nutriments, how we have kind of a tendency to occupy the mind. Why can't we keep it empty? Why we want to always clutter our mind? Why always we want to have thoughts in our mind? Why we always want to have mental images in our mind? When a particular thought comes, why can't we simply let it go? Why do we want to fabricate it? So these are the lines that we need to explore. We ourselves have to think, oh, why are we doing this? For what reason? So if we look at in that angle, then we explore Buddha's teaching. We start searching what are the mechanisms, what are the methodologies available to calm down all these constructions, to minimize all these unnecessary nutriments. For that, actually, we need the patipada. We need the proper path. So that is where Buddha mentioned you need a proper practice for that. So that is nothing but the Noble Eightfold Path. So if you know the nutriment, and if you know the causes of nutriments, if you know the cessation of nutriments, and again if you know the path leading to the cessation of nutriments, so that is Sammaditthi. That is another way of Sammaditthi, proper view, correct view. So the path leading to the cessation of nutriments is nothing but the Noble Eightfold Path. So in order to fully understand, fully attack this whole process, you need morality, sila. You need fair amount of mental culture, say that is samadhi, mental development. And further you need to develop wisdom, so that is vipassana or panya. By employing this Noble Eightfold Path, one can have cessation to those four nutriments. So these are very interesting but really deep, but these are mentioned by the Buddha, and he asks us to explore, reflect about this, rather than simply following our kind of addictions, rather than simply following our own cravings. How about step back and look at all these processes? So that is where the mental culture, the mental development, bhavana is involved. That is where the vipassana is involved. Inviting all of you to have a try, give it a try. So there is the Dhamma inviting you. It is not that I am inviting you basically. So Dhamma invites, ehi passiko. So Buddha's teaching is so deep, so beautiful, with a lot of similes. He articulates it, beautifully explains it, help us to understand it. And that Dhamma invites us to come and see, put it into practice and see. So with that invitation, I like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Thank you very much for attentive listening.
Sadhu, 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 Bhante. Thank you much, Merit Bhante, for showing us theoretically and some of the practical points of how to get to that
recording stopped.
I think since there isn't much time for discussion, considering the depth of the topic and the number who are listening, who are meditators, I can see I will open the floor to discussion, but shall we first invite the venerables who are logged in to first comment or ask a question? Bhante?
Venerable sir, there is no question to ask. It was very, very clear. But what I want is the suttas that you mentioned, because very fast you would like to know the names of those suttas, so they could again look into those.
Sure, yeah. So one sutta, one important sutta I have mentioned is the Upaya Sutta.
Excuse me again?
Yeah, Upaya Sutta, which is available in the Khanda Sangyutta, in the connected discourses of the sutta. And then I have referred Nalakalapa Sutta, which is also in the connected discourses in Abhisamaya Sangyutta. where that interdependency between name and form and consciousness is explained. That is in Nalakalapa Sutta. And then I have of course referred the Ahara Sutta, where Buddha talks about these 4 nutriments. And then the simile of that 300 spear structs. So that is available in the Puttamansa Sutta. That is in Puttamansa Sutta is in again in Sangyutta Nikaya, Nidana Sangyutta. What else? And Sammaditthi Sutta, as you know, it is in Majjhima Nikaya. That is also I have referred. And these are the suttas actually I have referred.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments? We have, I think, Bhikkhu Ananda. Venerable Bhante, in the Sammaditthi Sutta, it's Ahara Samudayancha Pajanati, Ahara Nirodhancha, Ahara Nirodhagamini. How can we look at it a little more in that way?
Exactly. So
I suppose Samudayancha was the Nama Rupa and stopping that is the Nirodha, is it?
Yeah, actually basically in that Sammaditthi Sutta, Aharancha Pajanati, Ahara Samudayancha Pajanati, Ahara Nirodhancha Pajanati, Ahara Nirodhagamini Patipadanta Pajanati. Now Aharancha Pajanati. So we discuss about all 4 types of nutriments. So fair amount of theoretical understanding as well as say you recognize, say when the say passa happens, so you know, okay, just the contact happens. Say when say consciousness happens, if possible, okay, you recognize it happens. So like basically fair amount of understanding of that 4 nutriments. Then Ahara Samudaya, that means actually the Ahara Samudaya is basically we can sort of drill down simply to the craving. Because of craving, these different nutriments are happening in operation because of craving. Say I have certain craving, that is why I am looking at certain sights through ears, through eyes. I have certain craving towards sounds, music, so that's why I am listening to music. So craving is the one conditioning all these different kinds of nutriments. On the other hand, Ahara Nirodhancha Pajanati. So if I am able to overcome that craving, then actually I can overcome those nutriments as well. So then what is the Patipada? Ahara Nirodha Gamanincha Patipada. So that is the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah.
But at the silent mind, one is conscious. One must be conscious of the fact that the consciousness is silent.
True. Now that is where we need to little understand. Now there's a very beautiful simile mentioned by the Buddha in Attiraga Sutta. So that is available in another Sangyutta Nikaya. So there Buddha mentioned, let me ask few questions from you. Now actually Buddha asked these questions. There is a tall kind of a house. It has 4 walls. And in the eastern side wall, there's a hall, a window we can say. Now all these walls are directed towards all those different directions, north, east, west and south. And Buddha asked, during the morning when light rays happen, the sun rays happen from east side, so where those light rays go and hit? What do you think?
They hit the opposite wall.
Opposite wall. That is which wall? That is the west wall. West wall. Because from east is coming because of the opening available in the east wall. Now it is hitting the west wall. Now monks answer the same thing. Monks answer is the same. Now Buddha asked, if that west wall is not available, now where it is going to hit? What do you think? Is the west wall is not available? No, west wall is...
Infinity.
No.
So there is no width, so it will just go further down.
No, actually it is coming from sun.
No.
Coming from sun, it may strike the ground. It may strike the ground because the wall is not available. It may go and strike the ground. So monks answer like, okay, it may strike the ground. It may establish on ground. Now Buddha asks, if the ground is not available, then monks answer, okay Bhante, if ground is not available, now we have water. Water, this plate is available, now it may strike the water. Now Buddha asks, if water is not available, where it's going to establish? Then monks say, it is not established. So likewise, so we only know about kind of a consciousness which is always established. Either it established on various forms, either it's established on various feelings, either it established on various mental formations, or in perceptions, mental images. So whenever mind is occupied, that means our consciousness is fairly occupied on them. But we have never heard about kind of a consciousness which is not established. So Buddha is talking on that. So there is a kind of a full awareness, where the consciousness is not established. Name and form is not there. So your mind is not occupied with name and form. Your consciousness is not entangled in name and form. But the consciousness in the sense that awareness is available, but it is not established on any form, any feeling, any perception, or any kind of mental formation. So that is another side that Buddha is referring. Say during the night. So can we say that the sun rays are not available? So when moon is available, so we can see, okay, sun rays are coming and hitting the moon, and as a result of that we get the reflection. So that indicates, okay, the sun rays are available, but there is nothing there to reflect it, there is nothing there to strike it, but sun rays are available. So similarly, so this awareness is available, but there are no objects to get established, there are no objects to get entangled, but the awareness is available. So that is the region that Buddha is taking us. Okay, full awareness is there, but mind is not entangled. Consciousness is not entangled. It is not established on name and form. So your mind start enjoying kind of a freedom of consciousness. It is not kind of an unentangled kind of consciousness. Mind is not entangled, not deluded by anything. So that is the direction that Buddha wants us to look forward or practice forward.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
There's a question in the chat box. I'll read it out.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I can't see the chat.
Bhante, thank you for a wonderful talk. Sadhu, sadhu. How are latent defilements eradicated at the end? Does it happen automatically during the practice through samadhi as the mind gets purified? For example, I understand defilement of jealousy is eradicated at Arahant level. So there's a question and a comment also.
Yeah. So basically, so when this whole process happens, so slowly we are continuing our practice. Say you are practicing Kaya Anupassana, Vedana Anupassana, Chitta Anupassana, Dhamma Anupassana. So likewise, suppose you are continuing your practice. So in order for you to have unestablished consciousness, first of all we need to have dispassion, because we have consciousness get established because of the passion, because of the lust, because of the greed. I want to have, I want to look, I want to enjoy, I want to see, I want to sense. So likewise the greed is the one conditioning, but now because of the practice, slowly the greed is minimized, the craving is minimized. So not only craving, actually all the other defilements are also fairly calmed down, fairly diluted. And suppose now you are, because of your practice, you are understanding the reality. Say you are paying attention to various elements, you are paying attention to various forms, sights, sounds, smells, tastes. You are trying to explore, investigate. So you understand their true nature, how quickly they arise and pass away, how beyond they are your control. So likewise, more you understand that, you start letting them go. rather than getting attached to them, you simply let them go. That means you are sort of relinquishing them. So in order to relinquish, you need to have dispassion. So if you are trying to hold them, grasp them, then it's not going to work. But the opposite, you need to let them go. You have to relinquish. That means the dispassion. You are reducing your passion, reducing your lust, reducing your greed, craving. So other defilements are also likewise fading away, slowly fading away. So once the mind is released, because of this understanding, so again and again, so probably you may even understand how eye making happens, mind making happens, how conceit happens. So as you said, various other subtle defilements are happening. Because mind is fairly equipped with various qualities. Say mindfulness is very good, concentration is very good, wisdom is very good. So likewise, you are capable of understanding various defilements. Their presence you can understand. So when you know these defilements are available, rather than being trapped with them, rather than being driven by them, you simply let them go. You simply allow them to pass away. Knowing and seeing, you allow them to pass away. So as Buddha mentioned in the Sabbasava Sutta, Janato bhikkhave passato asavanam kayam vadami. So you know, you see, you notice these defilements, and you are not promoting them, and you simply allow them to pass away. So likewise, we can work out to slowly uproot different kinds of defilements.
Much merit, Bhante, for explaining all the questions so clearly and so carefully. Any other questions? Samudra, anything more on the chat? Shall I leave you to read those out, please?
That's the only one.
Nothing more. Yeshini, you have any questions?
Yes, Manori, thank you. I'm not sure how to formulate this question, Manori. I'll try. Bhante, when we are practicing, talking of letting go, now it's possible for us to let go the thoughts. It's possible for us to let go, let's say we hear something, or if we see something, we can, with the practice of mindfulness, we can let it go. And from what I understand, the consciousness fades away, isn't it? Our job is to let go the thoughts, or let go whatever the contacts that come into our orbit. Am I wrong in what I'm saying? Can you sort of give me a better understanding on how I should do this?
Yeah, I think your understanding is correct. So that's why, as I mentioned in the Upaya Sutta also, so Buddha mentioned consciousness either wants forms to establish, either wants feelings to establish, either wants different perceptions, signs to establish, or either wants kind of mental activity, mental formations to establish. Now in the practice, what we do is to minimize all those four. Say forms, we are now slowly fading away. Feelings are now fading away. I mean, we don't have much passion towards them. We have kind of dispassion towards, say, feelings. Various signs, marks, perceptions, again we are developing some kind of dispassion. So they also start fading away. And mental formations, we try to minimize. That also fades away. Now, in other terms, we are not giving food for consciousness. We are not producing name and form for consciousness. It is not that we are directly attacking consciousness, rather we are sort of starve consciousness, we can say. Forms, perceptions, feelings, mental formations are necessary, but now we are not giving them. We are starving consciousness, we are minimizing the establishment of the consciousness. So that is how we approach, we can say.
Thank you very much, Bhante. This is one nutriment that I never understood.
Right.
And with this explanation, I really understood how I could sort of, not only did I understand the nutriment consciousness, but how to practically absorb it. And thank you, Manori, for encouraging me to ask the question, because I was grappling with it, not knowing how to word it. Thank you very much.
Actually, to be honest, I also didn't understand, the Mano Sanchetana Ahara, the consciousness, the Vijnana Ahara very much before I was conducting these sessions, and various other, introductions and Dhamma teachings, particularly from Katukurunda Jnanananda Bhante. So those are quite helpful, and these are very subtle subjects in Buddha's teaching. So again and again we need to listen to these kinds of teachings, we need to explore them, we have to contemplate them, and then we have to put into practice. Then further and further we may start understanding them.
Much merit, Bhante.
Yeah.
I have heard that Picture Palace Cinema, suddenly the doors opening.
Yeah.
But Bhante explained the Nama Rupa, and that brought in, and it was a lot clearer. You made it very, very clear.
Right.
Much merit to you, Bhante.
Okay.
Hearing the example only, I hadn't known how to work it out.
Right.
Much merit, Bhante.
Yeah.
In the absence of any other questions, are there any other questions? We just have about a few minutes before we wind up.
I think
Anuja has a question.
yes.
Yes, Anuja.
Venerable Bhante, thank you. Thank you so very much for that explanation. Now, I just want to know, in the practice, when you're practicing, noticing the arising of feelings and perceptions and so on, which, as you say, sort of promote this mental proliferation. As you're progressing, will you be then noticing a reduction in the mental proliferation? Can that be taken as some sort of indication that this process is getting less?
Exactly.
If the mental proliferation reduces.
Exactly, definitely. So that is one important aspect that we can check. So if we are properly practicing, the mental proliferation has to reduce. So that occupation or constantly thinking, ongoing obsessive thinking, that has to be reduced, and you have to feel little calm, you have to feel little lighter, less stressed, because the mental proliferation is one very important cause to become depressed or become anxious and all those kind of unnecessary mental conditions. So with the reduction of mental proliferation, you feel more comfortable, more lighter, spaciousness in the mind, lightness in your mind. So therefore reduction in mental proliferation is a must to have. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Lakshmi, have you any questions? In that case, Venerable Sir, much merit to you for that wonderful sermon that we heard.
Yeah, someone else also has mentioned about the Bahya Sutta. Yeah, exactly. When we simply keep it only to seeing, we keep it only to hearing, without going through any mental proliferation, certainly we are trying to do the same thing. Bahya Sutta also we can take as an example. Yes.
Shall we then wind up in the usual way by transferring merit to the Devas and the departed, and to all those our Kalyana Mittas who have, let all the spiritual aspirations be fulfilled, and Bhante, may Bhante have a long and healthy life and go on teaching us more and more opportunities of this kind. Bhante, would you do the usual, the stanzas and for transferring merit, please?
Yeah, sure. So let's, whatever the merits that we have accumulated by listening to Dhamma, by discussing this Dhamma, so all the merits we share with all the celestial beings and all our past away relatives and whoever in need of merits. And let's wish these merits help us also to understand Buddha's teaching and to attain path, fruition, Nibbana. While keeping these good wishes in our mind, Let's recite the traditional verses. Ettavatacha amhehi sambataṃ punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavatacha amhehi sambataṃ punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavatacha amhehi sambataṃ punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. ආකාසට්ඨා ච බුම්මට්ඨා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්ඛන්තු ශාසනං. ආකාසට්ඨා ච බුම්මට්ඨා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්ඛන්තු දේශනං. ආකාසට්ඨා ච බුම්මට්ඨා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්ඛන්තු මම් පරං. ඉදං වෝ ඥාතීනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හුන්තු ඥාතයෝ. ඉදං වෝ ඥාතීනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හුන්තු ඥාතයෝ. ඉදං වෝ ඥාතීනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හුන්තු ඥාතයෝ. ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බානපත්තියා. ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බානපත්තියා. ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බානපත්තියා. සාදු සාදු සාදු.